If you can hear this, keep your volume low. Not because I'm trying to be mysterious, because the less attention you pull, the longer you might keep what you've got. A little battery, a little fuel, a little peace. And because there are people out there right now who think any signal is a problem they can solve with a pair of bolt cutters. This is Mason Reed. I used to read weather and school closings on a clean little FM stick. The kind of job where the worst day was a thunderstorm and a downed tree on Route 9. Tonight I'm on a rig that shouldn't exist. A borrowed transmitter, a mismatched antenna I built out of copper pipe, and a backup generator that's already hot to the touch. I'm broadcasting from the basement of a closed auto shop in Dayton, Ohio. Not my shop. The owner left the keys under a tire like he always did, even after the phones stopped working. Even after the first night, the whole block went black like someone threw a blanket over the city. Here is the fact I keep repeating, because it still doesn't fit in my head. The power did not come back. Not after an hour. Not after the usual rolling outages. Not after the crews are assessing messages that people saw before their last bars dropped to nothing. It's been 3 nights since the grid failure went nationwide, and North America is still dark. I know how big that sounds. I know how it sounds like something someone would say to get attention. I don't care what it sounds like anymore. You can look out your window and confirm it. No streetlights, no red dots on the towers, no glow over downtown. And if you're anywhere near a highway, you can probably hear it. The odd quiet where there should be engines, and the occasional single car that still has fuel and a driver who hasn't given up yet. I'm going to talk as long as the generator holds. I've got about 11 gallons left in cans that smell like plastic, and the generator drinks it faster when the air is damp. I'm keeping the transmitter low power, maybe 30 watts on a good moment, because I'm trying to reach neighborhoods, not win a contest. Also, the higher I push it, the hotter the finals get, and I don't have spare parts. Nobody does. This station has no real name. If you need one, call it WR Field. That's what I wrote on a strip of tape so I can tell myself this is still a job, not just a man talking into a microphone in a basement. I'm going to start with what we know. I'm going to be careful. There are rumors multiplying in the dark like mold. I'm not here for that. The outage started in the east first, from what we've pieced together. A lot of people in this area noticed a flicker around late afternoon 3 days ago. Lights dimming, then a hard cut. Some had a surge that popped power strips. Then nothing. At first, people treated it like a storm without the storm, but the weather was clear, the wind was mild, the sky was that bright, clean blue you only notice when you're not looking down at your phone. Within the first hour, we got a few weak reports through on the ham bands, guys who keep old radios for fun suddenly being the only ones who could talk past their own street. They said it wasn't just Ohio, it wasn't just the Midwest. There were accounts coming out of Pennsylvania, Georgia, Texas, Alberta. Different grids, different utilities, all failing like dominoes that weren't supposed to touch. The chilling part, the part that makes my mouth dry even now, is what happened to things that have their own power. People with solar setups reported their inverters shutting down. People with home batteries saw them trip and refuse to restart. Some diesel generators at hospitals ran, yes, but a lot of modern controls didn't like the way the grid went down. It wasn't a smooth fall, it was a hard snap. I'm not an engineer. I'm a broadcaster who spent enough time around station techs to ask questions. And the answers I'm getting now from people who actually do know all point the same way. This wasn't a tree on a line. This wasn't a storm. This was a failure that moved faster than crews could isolate and deeper than anyone planned for. In Dayton, the first night was almost normal. People sat on porches, someone lit a grill, kids ran around like it was a campout. The gas stations were closed, but some still had pumps that could be forced on for a minute if you knew what you were doing. That ended quick. By midnight, the line at the one station with a generator wrapped around the block, and the generator died in the rain because it hadn't been serviced in years. Somebody said the owner cried. I believe it. Day 2, water pressure dropped in the high parts of town. Toilets stopped refilling. The sound of running water became something you noticed and then worried about. By the afternoon, people were dragging 5-gallon buckets out to the river like it was a history book. Emergency services are saying, what little saying exists without a working press system, that they're running on radio and whatever fuel they have on hand. There are accounts coming out of Cincinnati of a dispatch center going silent for almost an hour because their backup batteries were old and the generator transfer switch stuck. They got it back, but the point is, even the places designed for this are coming apart at the seams. We got a short transmission earlier from a utility worker just west of here, somewhere near the big substation along the highway. He said the yard was quiet in a way that made him uneasy. No hum, no vibration in the fence, no warning buzz. He described the air smelling like hot dust, and the insulators looking clean but wrong, like someone drained the life out of them. He said crews were told to stand down because the remote systems were giving nonsense readings. His last line was that the radios at the yard were fine, but every handheld scanner they tried to use kept rebooting like it was confused about what time it was. That detail matters. Time. Synchronization. The grid is a giant balancing act, and when it loses its sense of timing, it doesn't just limp, it falls. A nurse at Miami Valley Hospital sent a few lines over a text packet relay before that relay went down. She said the emergency department is lit by generator power, but only parts. Hallways are dark to save load. They're using headlamps and battery lanterns. The elevators are out except one service car that's being rationed for moving critical patients. She said the worst problem isn't the injuries yet, it's the slow things. Insulin that's warming up, dialysis schedules breaking, oxygen concentrators at homes going silent. She said people are showing up with carbon monoxide headaches from running grills indoors. She wrote that she never thought she'd have to tell grown men not to sleep next to their running cars. A trucker somewhere on Interstate 70 eastbound got a message through to one of the hams who still has a tall mast. The trucker said he made it to a rest area and then stopped because the electronic signs were dead and he didn't trust the next stretch. He said the fuel pumps at the truck stop were down and drivers were arguing in the dark like they couldn't see each other's faces. He said he'd been hauling refrigerated food and the reefer unit ran until it didn't. When it quit, the silence in the trailer was so complete he could hear the thawing start, a soft dripping like a leak. He said he used his last clean rag to strain fuel from a shared jug because someone's tank had rust flakes in it and his filters were clogging. That's the level we're at. People are filtering fuel with rags like it's normal. I'm going to give you what I can on the wider picture. It's patchy. The usual sources are gone. No television, no official websites. Some AM stations ran for a while on generators and then went quiet, one by one, like candles. We heard a strong signal out of Chicago on the first night, then it faded the next afternoon. A station out of Toronto kept repeating a recorded message until it warped and slowed, like the tape was melting, and then that was gone too. The weather matters now in a way it didn't a week ago. Tonight, the air is colder than it should be for this time of year. The kind of cold that creeps into concrete. The forecast, what we can piece together from NOAA radio fragments and a few people with old hand crank sets, is calling for a front moving in from the northwest. If you're in a place with no heat, that's not just discomfort, that's danger. And I need to say something straight, because pretending otherwise is worse. Government response is uneven because the same systems they use to move are the systems that are broken. There are National Guard units, yes. There are convoys in some places, yes. There are also places where local police are directing traffic at dead intersections with glow sticks until they run out of glow sticks, and then they go home because their own families are cold. I'm going to pause for a moment to let the transmitter cool. If this drops, it means the generator coughed or the coil overheated. If you can still hear me after the pause, you're in range, and that matters. All right. If you're hearing this in Dayton or within a few miles, listen carefully. Do not waste fuel driving around looking for answers. There are no answers at the end of a tank. There are only more empty intersections and more people who are scared. Keep your fuel for heat, for moving water, for a real reason. We got another report, this one from a man who runs a small dairy farm north of town. He said his milking equipment is dead, and he's doing it by hand with help from his sons. He said the cows don't understand why the routine changed, and they're restless. He said the milk is going bad because the bulk tank isn't chilling. He's trying to turn it into cheese with salt he's rationing like medicine. He said neighbors came by with coolers and offered cash at first, then offered batteries, then offered nothing and just looked at him. That's what the outage is doing. It's peeling off the polite layers. Not everywhere, not in every one, but enough that you need to pay attention. I'm Mason Reed, WR Field, still on the air for now. This is night 3 since the grid failed across the continent. And I need you to understand the part that makes my hands shake even while I'm trying to sound steady. This isn't just lights. It's water treatment. It's fuel delivery. It's medication supply chains. It's the small, quiet systems that keep people from turning into problems for each other. Stay with me. I'm going to keep threading together what comes in, and I'm going to tell you what I can confirm. If your radio's on batteries, keep them warm. Cold drains them faster. If you have a hand crank, don't crank it until you need it. If you have a car, don't run it in a closed space, not even just a little. And if you're out there and you've got a signal to send, short, plain, factual, send it on whatever band you can. Someone is listening, not just me. There are other small voices trying to stitch a map together in the dark. Here's another piece of that map. And it's the kind that changes what you do with your next hour. We're receiving reports that the cellular towers that still blinked on backup the first night are dying in clusters now. Not all at once, one hill at a time. A ham operator south of here said he drove out toward Moraine to check a tower he can see from his kitchen window. He said the red light on the top was off, and the fence around the base had been cut open in 2 places. He didn't say he saw anyone. He said he didn't stop long enough to find out. If you're relying on a phone, even just as a flashlight, keep in mind that when the last towers go, it isn't just calls you lose. It's the thin layer of coordination people were still pretending they had. It's also the reason certain kinds of desperate people are going to start moving differently. Because right now, the easiest targets are the ones you can find by following the sound of a generator. I've got the transmitter dialed down a little further. The audio might be thinner. That's on purpose. I'm trying to be small. I'm going to talk about water again, because in the first days, people think of water as a faucet problem. It isn't. It's a time problem. In Dayton, the low areas still had some pressure this morning. The high streets, the second floors, they're getting air in the lines. When air gets in, you get bursts, then nothing, then brown water when it comes back. That brown water is not rust, not the harmless kind people like to say to calm themselves down. It's whatever got pulled in when the system lost pressure. A man who works maintenance at an apartment complex over by Five Oaks sent a short note through a relay. He said tenants were filling bathtubs night one, like the old advice says, and now those tubs are going gray and smelling like pennies. He said he tried to drain one to clean it and realized too late that if he dumps it, it might be the last water that family has for days. He said he's cutting up old bed sheets to make strainers, and the way he wrote it, you could tell he hated that he was even thinking that way. Boil if you can. If you can't boil, filter as best you can and let it settle. Don't drink the first cloudy pour from a container you just stirred up. These are small tricks, but small tricks matter now. We're also receiving reports that the wastewater lift stations are starting to fail. That means sewage where it shouldn't be, in places that were fine yesterday. A firefighter on the west side passed along that they've already had calls for basement backups in neighborhoods that never flood. He said the smell on some streets is like a wet dog mixed with bleach, and the bleach is people trying to fix a problem with a bottle and hope. If you have a basement drain, if you have a low toilet, pay attention. If you start hearing gurgling that isn't normal, stop using water if you can, and don't go wading in it. Skin cuts you don't even notice become problems when there's no clinic that can see you. I'm going to give you a weather update because the cold is the kind of enemy that doesn't look like an enemy until it's in your bones. This front I mentioned, people with old NOA sets and someone up near Springfield who can still decode fragments are all seeing the same thing. Overnight low is expected to drop below freezing. Not deep winter, but enough. If you have a house that's not insulated well, if you have pipes in an outer wall, that's when you start breaking things you can't repair. A school custodian in Kettering reported they opened the building for a few families yesterday, unofficially. Just a place to sit out of the wind. He said they had maybe 20 people at first, then by evening it was closer to 70, and the building got loud in a tired way. He said the principal wanted to keep it calm, but you can't keep it calm when the bathrooms stop flushing and the vending machines are dead and the only light is a few emergency lanterns people brought from home. He said he used the last of the cafeteria's propane for the stove to heat soup from cans and then had to decide whether to save the last canisters for warmth or for food. There isn't a good choice there. There's just the least bad one. Now, government response. What I can say without turning this into rumor. There are accounts coming out of Columbus that the state emergency management is trying to set up fuel points for critical services, ambulances, water plants, certain shelters. The word trying is doing a lot of work in that sentence. A volunteer with a medical reserve team said they were told to report to a staging area at the fairgrounds, and when they got there, there were pallets of supplies, but no forklifts running because the propane tanks were empty, and nobody could confirm when more would come. He said they started moving boxes by hand until someone realized half the boxes were baby formula, and half were IV fluids that needed temperature control. They started arguing about what to carry first. He said a man in a vest made a decision by pointing, like that's all leadership is now, a finger and a guess. There are also reports of National Guard checkpoints at certain highway ramps, but not everywhere, and not in a tidy line, more like islands. A woman driving back from visiting her mother near Middletown said she hit a ramp where soldiers had set up cones and flares and were turning people around because there was a crash ahead that they couldn't clear without tow trucks.
She said there were 3 vehicles just sitting in the lane like abandoned furniture, and one of them had its doors open like the driver walked away mid-thought. If you have to travel, travel in daylight. Don't assume roads are clear just because you're used to them being clear. A road without fuel and without dispatch is a road that stays blocked. Now I'm going to fold in more field reports, because this is how we keep the picture honest, small pieces checked against each other. A utility worker, who I believe is the same one near that substation west of here, same phrasing, same habit of giving one detail too many, sent another short transmission. He said they tried again to power a small section, not the whole thing, just a test. He said they had a portable generator feeding a control cabinet, and the moment they brought the cabinet online, the relays clicked like teeth, rapid, wrong, and then the cabinet went dead with a smell like burnt varnish. He said they opened it and saw a board with a tiny black crater in it, like it had been punched with a hot needle. He said the spare board they keep in a locked drawer did the same thing. He said it's like the grid is down and it's taking the parts with it. That matches what others have been saying about sensitive electronics failing in strange ways. Not all of them. Some old rigs are fine. Some newer ones keep rebooting, like he said. If you have older equipment, older radios, older cars, older generators with simple controls, you may have an advantage right now. It's not a comfortable advantage, but it's real. A trucker who was stuck eastbound on 70 sent another update through the same ham chain. He said more drivers have abandoned their trailers. He said he watched a man unhook and just drive his tractor away, leaving 40,000 pounds of thawing food on the shoulder because he didn't want to be trapped when the next wave of people came looking for it. He said last night he heard glass breaking at the truck stop, then saw a line of headlights moving slow, searching, like people hunting for the one vehicle that still had something to take. A nurse, different from Miami Valley, this one sounded like she was at a small clinic in Huber Heights, reported they're running out of oxygen cylinders. She said they have patients with COPD who can walk and talk, but they're turning blue when they sit still. She said they're telling families to keep people upright, keep them warm, keep them calm, and that's the plan. That's what medicine is becoming when the warehouse doors don't open. A farmer out by Vandalia said he started slaughtering early, not because he wants to, but because feed deliveries stopped and the animals don't understand the math. He said he's smoking meat in a barrel and trading it for antibiotics for his wife, who has a tooth infection that's swelling her jaw. He said he never thought he would barter meat for pills like it was normal, but he said it without drama, just tired. I'm telling you these because you need to see the sequence. First it's lights, then it's fuel, then it's water, then it's medicine, then it's food. And in the spaces between those, it's people deciding what kind of person they are going to be when nobody is watching. I need to take another short pause. The generator pitch just dipped for a second, and that means it's either low on fuel in the line or it's pulling harder because the load spiked. I'm going to check it quick and come back. If the signal drops and doesn't return, don't keep scanning with your volume up. Wait 10 minutes, then try again. I'm back. Fuel line was starving. The can is low enough now that the pickup tube is catching air when the generator shakes. I tipped it, got another couple inches of head, and I'm going to keep the load lighter. If my voice sounds flatter, that's the compressor turned off. I don't want anything in this chain working harder than it has to. This is Cal Mercer, running WNVR, and I'm still in the basement, still inside Dayton city limits. I'm saying that out loud because there are people out there pretending this is just a long outage. It isn't. It's day 3 since the pulse. You can call it whatever you want, but you can't pretend your newer car didn't die on the shoulder at the same moment as the streetlights. And you can't pretend the little solar controllers didn't pop the first time you tried to use them. That's not weather. That's not overload. That's a different kind of event. and it already happened. If you can hear this, keep your volume low. I'm not the only one being careful. Someone on the south side told me they saw a sheriff's SUV parked outside a small AM station with the hood up, like it was broken down. They said 2 men in clean boots went in the side door and came out with a cardboard box. The station went quiet after that. Could be innocent, could be them trying to stop panic. Either way, it means the less attention we draw, the longer this signal stays useful. Here's what's changed in the last hour. The air is colder already. You can feel it in the concrete. The humidity is up too, and that matters because damp cold steals heat faster than dry cold. If you're sleeping in a room without power, don't sleep on the floor if you can help it. Put a layer between you and the concrete, even if it's flattened boxes. People think they're being tough, then they wake up shaking and they don't know why. We're receiving reports that the water pressure in the high spots dropped again around midday. A man in Belmont said his kitchen tap sputtered, then started pulling air like a straw in an empty cup. He said the last water he got was cloudy and smelled like a swimming pool that hasn't been cleaned. He didn't drink it. He used it to flush once, and he said the toilet burped like it was breathing back at him. That's a sign the line is losing its seal. If your house is doing that, stop adding water to the system unless you have to. Every pour you send down your drain might be coming back up somewhere else. Another note came in from someone who does work at a small water plant north of here. He didn't give his name, just a short block of numbers and then plain words. He said their control boards are failing the same way the substation boards did. He said they can still spin some pumps manually, but the chemical feed is stuck. That means if they do manage to push water out, they can't guarantee treatment. And if they don't push water out, the pipes sit and pull in whatever they can from the ground when pressure drops. He said they were told to keep it running as long as possible, and he said the person who told them that sounded like they were reading it off a card. This is where the sequence tightens. Water isn't just water. It's fire control and sanitation and the ability to stay put. When water goes, people move. We got a transmission from a woman who works at a grocery on Woodman. She said they tried to do the right thing yesterday. They were letting people take what they needed, keeping it calm, writing names on a legal pad because the register screens were dead. She said it worked until the afternoon when a group showed up with a cart and a baseball bat and started filling it like it was a game. She said the manager stepped in and one of them shoved him hard enough that he hit the end cap and stayed down for a minute. Nobody wanted to be the first person to fight back. She said the moment the first bottle broke on the floor, it was like the rules changed in the air. She locked herself in the office with 2 other employees until it got quiet. When she came out, the store was warm from bodies, and the cooler doors were hanging open like mouths. I'm not telling you that to scare you. I'm telling you because if you're thinking about going to a store, go early, go with a plan, and do not go alone if you can avoid it. And don't bring something you aren't willing to lose. If you walk in with your last gallon of gas in a red can, you might walk out without it. We're also receiving reports that some of the traffic lights at bigger intersections are being used as landmarks now, not because they work, because people are posting up near them. A delivery driver near Linden Heights said he watched 2 men sit on the curb under a dead light with backpacks between their feet, just watching cars, not stopping them, just watching. That's the kind of thing you notice, and then you notice you're gripping your steering wheel too hard. About vehicles, old is good right now. Not classic car old, but simple. Carbureted, no smart ignition, no newer electronic throttle. A mechanic in Riverside sent a short note saying he's got 3 cars in his lot that will still start, all older than 1995, and he's hiding them behind the building because people keep walking the alley and peering in like they're window shopping. He said he started draining the fuel from the tanks into jugs and burying the jugs in the gravel. He said he hated himself for thinking like that, but then he said, "I hate being hungry more." Government response, what little can be confirmed. There are accounts coming out of Columbus that they're trying to set up a curfew in parts of the city, not the whole place, just blocks where there were fights around fuel stations. But curfew doesn't mean much when your officers are trying to keep their own families warm. A guy who sounded like he was with a volunteer fire department west of here said they got told to stand by for a fuel delivery that never came, then got told to conserve fuel, then got told to respond to a structure fire with a single engine because the others were out of diesel. He said the fire was started by a candle knocked over in a living room. He said the family tried to put it out with a pot of water and slipped on the rug. He said by the time they arrived, the house was gone, and the water pressure was so low they were mostly just keeping it from spreading to the neighbor's roof. That's where we are. We got another piece of intel from a ham operator up near Englewood. He said the repeater that was carrying most of the local chatter went silent around noon. He climbed to the roof of a strip mall to check line of sight, and he said he could see the tower in the distance, but he couldn't hear the carrier anymore. He said he tried to raise anyone on Simplex and got only one reply. A man who said he was trying to power the repeater with a car battery, and it kept collapsing under load, like the battery was bad. But the battery was new. That's important. If new batteries are failing early, if they're going flat fast, that means we can't count on the normal math of this should run for 8 hours. Plan for half. Plan for a quarter. Someone else, a teacher sheltering with neighbors near Oakwood, sent a message that stuck with me because it's small and it's real. She said the kids in the house stopped asking when the lights will come back. She said they started asking what time it gets dark. That's adaptation. That's also loss. Now, I need to tell you something I didn't want to say on air until I was sure. I'm not staying in this basement much longer. Not because I want to move, because staying becomes its own kind of risk. The fuel I have left won't keep the generator running through another full night, and the temperature down here is going to drop below safe if I'm sitting still. Also, there was movement on my street this morning that didn't feel like neighbors checking on each other. 2 vehicles, slow, no headlights even though it was gray out, circling. I killed the transmitter and watched through the gap in the blinds. They stopped once, and one of them pointed at a house with a chimney smoking. Then they rolled on. Maybe they were looking for family. Maybe they were counting. So here's the practical part. If you have a fixed station at home, think now about where you go when home stops being the best place. Not where you go when it's already too late and you're carrying things in the dark. Where you go while you can still walk out in daylight and choose your route. I've got one option that's still open. A small church building a few miles east has a basement with a hand pump on a shallow well and thick walls. The pastor there used to do volunteer storm shelter work. He's not a radio man, but he understands quiet. He said I can set up for a night or two as long as I keep the antenna low and don't bring trouble with me. If I leave, I'll do it near first light. I'll cache what I can't carry. I'll take the smallest rig, the one that can run off a deep cycle battery. If you're listening tomorrow and you don't hear me on this frequency, it doesn't mean I'm gone. It means I moved, and I'm trying to be found by the people who need to hear, not by the people who hunt noise. Before I go, more reports, because you may be making decisions tonight based on what you think is happening out there. A man who sounded like a soldier, or at least someone wearing a uniform, sent a clipped note through a relay saying they were posted at a highway ramp near the interchange and were told to stop outbound traffic unless essential. He said nobody could define essential.
He said they let a car through because a child was coughing hard in the back seat. Then 10 minutes later, they stopped an older man with oxygen tanks because someone higher up said no exceptions. He said he watched the older man sit in his car and cry without making a sound, then turn around and drive back into town. He said he can't get that image out of his head. A sanitation worker in Trotwood said their trucks are parked because the dispatch system is down and the fuel is locked behind gates with keypad controls that don't work. He said the dumpsters behind restaurants are already swelling. He said rats are out in the daytime. If you're cooking outside, keep your scraps sealed. Don't feed the problem you'll be living with in a week. A pharmacist near Beaver Creek said people are coming in with handwritten notes trying to trade jewelry for insulin. She said she has insulin in the fridge, but the fridge is warm now because the generator at the strip mall died. She said she's trying to keep it cold in a cooler with ice from a freezer that's melting. That's hours, not days. If you need refrigerated meds, start treating it like a countdown. Find a neighbor with an old propane fridge, an RV, anything that can keep a steady cool without sensitive electronics. And a trucker who made it as far as the outskirts of Springfield said the gas stations that still had underground fuel can't pump it. People are siphoning from tanks the old way, with hoses and mouths and containers that used to hold paint. He said he saw 2 men vomiting on the curb from swallowing fuel. He said one of them still went back for more after he wiped his face. That's where the desperation is. I'm going to stay on for a few more minutes and push out one more set of basics while I still have steady power. If you have water now, treat it. If you have fuel now, hide it and split it up. If you have warmth, share it carefully with people you trust. If you have a radio that still works, write down the frequencies you can hear because memory gets slippery when you're cold and hungry. And if you see the red lights on towers going dark one by one, understand what that means.
It means we're not just losing convenience, we're losing the ability to warn each other fast. I'll check the generator again, then I'm going to let the transmitter cool. If you're out there, keep listening, but don't burn your own battery chasing my signal. I'll be back when I can, and if I can't, then watch your water and watch your streets at dawn. That's when people decide what they're willing to do. I'm still here. I didn't cut all the way. I let the carrier sit for a minute and watch the meter. It's sagging. That tells me the fuel feed is still pulling bubbles. If you can hear a little wobble in my voice now and then, that's not emotion. That's the rig dipping and climbing as the generator hunts. I'm going to use this last steady stretch for a few things that are hard to say later when my hands are cold. First, the pulse. People keep using soft words for it because soft words make it feel like something you can wait out. You can't. I've had enough eyes on enough devices now to be sure. It wasn't just the grid, it was the small stuff too. A man out by Kettering sent a note saying his old tractor will still run, but the newer one with the digital dash is dead in the field like it was unplugged. A woman near Fairborn said her sewing machine still works because it's foot-powered, but her battery lantern popped the first time she swapped in fresh cells. Somebody else, a guy who repairs garage doors for a living, said every opener in the row of condos he checked is fried, even the ones that were unplugged, because the surge came down the sensor lines. That's a pattern. That's not coincidence. Second, the cold. It's not just uncomfortable, it changes how people behave. When the temperature drops, you stop doing the extra good things. You stop walking down the block to check on the old couple. You stop boiling water because you don't want to spend the fuel. You start staying inside, and that's when the small problems become big ones. If you're in a house with any kind of chimney, remember something basic. Smoke shows. I said that earlier in a different way, but I'm saying it plain now. If you're burning anything inside, burn it clean if you can. Dry wood, small hot fire, not a smolder. A long lazy smoke trail is a flag. People who are hungry don't need to know your name to follow it. I got a short transmission from a guy who said he was walking home from his job when the pulse hit. He'd been stuck 2 days.
He said he followed rail lines because they're straight and you don't get lost as easy. And he said he kept seeing the same thing at crossings. A line of cars with hoods up and people sitting on curbs like they were waiting for a tow that isn't coming. He said the saddest part was the first day, when everybody still had their hazard lights blinking. He said by night 2, the hazards were all dark, and the people were still sitting there anyway, like the act of sitting was the only plan left. Now, I'm going to tell you what I'm doing, not as a promise, but as a record, because if this signal goes quiet, at least there's a shape to it. I'm packing while I talk. Light, battery rig, a coil of wire, and a little notebook. If you think you won't forget things, you will. The mind drops details when it's tired. Write down your medicine schedules. Write down where you cached water. Write down who has the spare keys. And write down names. It matters later. I'm leaving at first light still. That hasn't changed. What has changed is the route. There was another sweep on my street about 40 minutes ago. Same 2 vehicles, same slow pace. One of them sounded like it had a bad belt, a high squeal when it idled. That's the detail I'm holding on to, because it means I can recognize it if I hear it again. They stopped at the corner and didn't get out. They just sat with the engine running. That's a choice. Fuel is precious, and they sat anyway. That tells me they had a reason. So I'm not going straight east on the main road like I planned. I'm going to cut south first, then loop back, stay off the wide streets. It will take longer, but I'd rather take longer than be predictable. I'm getting more messages now than I can read on air, but I want you to hear a few because they're pieces of the same picture. A nurse at a clinic near Huber Heights sent a plain update. They're not a hospital, but people are showing up anyway. She said they ran out of oxygen tubing yesterday. She said they have oxygen tanks, but the fittings don't match between the old tanks and the newer masks, and nobody can get to the supply chain to fix it. She said they started cutting and taping lines together like they were fixing a vacuum cleaner. She said the hardest thing is the quiet. No monitors beeping, because the monitors are dead. She said you have to put your fingers on a wrist and watch a chest rise like it's 1945. A man who said he works maintenance for a big apartment complex downtown said the fire alarms are failing in a way that scares him.
He said some panels are dead, and some are stuck in trouble mode, and people are ripping the horns off the wall because they're tired of hearing the chirp. He said if a real fire starts, no one will know until they smell it, and by then the stairwell will be a chimney. If you live in a building with shared halls, don't wait for an alarm to tell you what's happening. Use your nose. Check the door for heat before you open it. Keep shoes by the bed. A farmer outside Xenia reported that his well pump is dead, but he can still pull water with an old hand pump he had for livestock. He said his neighbor came over with 2 5-gallon buckets and kept looking over his shoulder the whole time. He said he didn't mind sharing water. He minded the way the neighbor's eyes kept sliding toward his barn, like he was counting how much could be taken if it came to that. That's where we are. People aren't just thirsty, they're measuring each other. And a utility worker, lineman voice, tired, sent a clipped note saying crews tried to re-energize a small section near the river using an older transformer they had in storage. He said it lit for about 15 minutes, then the transformer heated hard and they heard it sing, and then it popped. He said the load wasn't even high. He said it behaved like the insulation inside had already been cooked before it ever went into service. If that's true, it means the damage is deeper than a few broken parts. It means we're trying to rebuild with pieces that are also sick. Either way, it means there are still transmitters alive out there,
And that means there are still people trying. But the local stuff is thinning. The little neighborhood chatter that was bubbling yesterday is going quiet tonight. That might be batteries dying. That might be people choosing silence. Or it might be something worse. People learning that talking makes you a target. I'm going to say one more thing about hiding. Hide smart. If you put all your fuel in one place and someone finds it, you just donated your future. Split it. One can in the shed, one can buried, one can with a neighbor you trust who will not fold under pressure. Same with food. Same with medicine. Make it annoying to steal from you. Make it not worth it. My generator is starting to stumble again. I can hear it in the pitch. I'm going to keep this going until it can't, but I'm not going to ride it into a hard stop, because a hard stop is a dead transmitter, and maybe a dead battery. If you're listening in Dayton tonight, and you're thinking about moving tomorrow, watch the intersections near the dead lights. Watch the people who are just standing there with nothing in their hands. They're not waiting for a bus. And watch the chimneys at dawn. Not because smoke is pretty, because smoke is a map now. I'll be back on this frequency when I can. If you don't hear me here, try a slow scan. Don't blast your volume. Don't stand in a window with a radio in your hand like it's a lantern. And if you're out there, and you're still making small, good choices even when no one is watching, keep doing it. That's the only thing I can tell you that doesn't run out like fuel. So watch for it. And if you're out there, keep your light low. I'm going to drop power for a minute and let the generator breathe. If you lose me, don't chase the dial too hard. I'm still on the same band. The carrier's just thin. I'm watching the meter, and the needle is doing that slow fall again. That means I'm done sitting in this house pretending it's a station. The fuel smell is stronger now, and that tells me a little of it is getting past the cap. Not a lot, enough to make a dumb mistake feel tempting. Like saying, just one more hour. One more hour is how you wake up to a dead battery and a dead voice. So I'm moving. Timeline for anyone who is counting days with scratches on a wall. This is night 3 after the pulse. I know some of you are calling it the pulse like it's a single moment. It was a moment, but it didn't end when the lights went out. It's still here in what it broke. I'm in Dayton still, west side, and I'm packing the rig into the bag. The small one, not the hard case. Hard case makes you look like you're carrying something worth taking. I'm not going to my first plan. The first plan was a friend's garage off Gettysburg, and that plan is dead because I heard that same belt squeal again about 10 minutes ago. Closer this time, and it wasn't on the main road. It was on a side street. That means they're not just cruising, they're checking. I'm going to a fallback I didn't want to use yet. There's a church down off 3rd, older building, basement rooms, thick walls, and there's a maintenance shed behind it that used to hold salt and a push mower. A guy who used to do wiring there gave me a key years ago after I helped him set up a little ham antenna for storm season. I never returned the key. I'm not proud of that. Tonight, I'm grateful. If you're hearing this and you're close, don't come looking for me. I'm not making a camp, I'm making a stepping stone. Being found is the whole problem. I got 3 short reports while I was packing, and I'm going to pin them here because they tell you what's changing. A trucker who said he got stranded on 75 South near the old rest area sent a burst of text through a relay, just enough to fit before his radio died. He said a lot of the semis that were running old mechanical engines kept going after the pulse, and a lot of the newer ones didn't. He said the ones that did run became magnets. People were walking up with gas cans and knives and polite voices. He said the polite voices ran out before the daylight did. He said he wrapped his fuel caps with duct tape and dirt so they looked already opened and empty. He said it worked twice. The 3rd time somebody didn't believe him and punched a hole in his tank anyway to see. A woman who said she works for the county, not emergency, just clerical, said the courthouse had a meeting by flashlight today.
She said the plan was to set up a paper sign-in at a few schools like old disaster drills and try to make them warming centers with whatever generators they can find. Then she said something that matters. She said the sheriff's office is advising anyone with radio gear to register their location so they can coordinate messaging. She didn't say it like a threat, but I've heard that wording before, in other years, in other places. Register your location and you put a pin on yourself. Decide what that means to you. And a guy who repairs HVAC, a real practical voice, said people are dying of heat in reverse. Not frostbite yet, hypothermia in living rooms. He said it's happening because folks are sitting still in coats and thinking that's enough. Not moving, not eating enough, not drinking, and the body just gives up. He said he found a neighbor slumped by a space heater that wasn't even plugged in anymore, hands held out to a cold grate like prayer. That's the curve we're on. Okay, I'm stepping out now. If you're listening on something small, you might hear me fade. The antenna is going to change as I move. I've got a short whip rigged to the pack, and it's not pretty, but it radiates. The air outside is sharp. There's no other way to say it. It bites the inside of your nose. The street is dark enough that you can see your own breath in the starlight, and it's not a poetic thing. It's a thing that tells you how fast you'll lose heat if you stop. No street lights, no porch lights, just a few candles behind curtains, and you can tell who has them because the curtains glow like a low orange bruise. I'm staying off the center line. There's old ice on the edges where yesterday's melt refroze, and you don't want to slip. A fall right now is an injury, and an injury is a countdown. There's a car half up on the curb at the first corner, nose into a snowbank that wasn't there a week ago. Somebody tried to turn too sharp in the dark and decided the curb was a ramp. The windshield is frosted on the inside, which means someone slept in it and breathed until the glass glazed. The driver's door is open a crack. That's a small sign, but it's one I'm collecting. Open a crack means left in a hurry, or left on purpose so it won't freeze shut, or so the smell can get out. I'm not going to check which. I'm moving south, like I said, cutting between houses, through yards where the snow is packed by somebody else's footsteps. That part is not good. It means I'm not the only one using the spaces between. There's a dog barking 2 streets over, the kind of steady bark that means it sees something and can't get to it. I don't hear any human voice following it, and that's worse. Halfway down the block, I stop and listen. Just the wind and that faint, distant hum that isn't the grid, more like a generator somewhere running hard. Somebody has power, and they're using it, and it's advertising for them whether they know it or not. I'm going to cross the wide street now. This is where the deadlights make it dangerous because people treat it like a free-for-all. There's a vehicle coming, slow, no headlights, just the ghost of moonlight on the hood. I can hear the belt squeal when it rolls, high, thin like a whistle that doesn't stop. Same one? Same 2 vehicles? I only hear one right now, but sound does weird things in cold air. I'm down behind a parked van. The van has a family sticker on the back window, sun-faded, 3 little figures and a dog. It makes me mad, and I don't have time for that. The vehicle rolls through the intersection and doesn't stop. They're not looking for traffic. They're looking for movement. They're going the other way, toward the river. That's a choice, too. River means bridges, and bridges mean choke points. I'm moving again. If you're tracking yourself through the city, here's the simplest rule I can give you. Don't be where the easy path is. Easy path is where the hungry go first. I'm 2 blocks from 3rd now. I can smell smoke, but it's not a clean wood smoke. It has plastic in it, that sweet, bitter edge that sticks to your tongue. Somebody's burning trash or furniture. Maybe they don't know better. Maybe they do and they don't care. I got another report while I was walking. Came in as broken pieces, but enough made it through. A student at Wright State said a group tried to set up a battery charging table using car alternators spun by a bike wheel. He said it worked until someone brought a newer electric bike battery and it heated up and swelled like bread dough. He said they took it outside and it popped and sprayed the snow with black soot. He said everybody backed away like it was a snake. That's the pulse again, reaching forward. The safe things are the old, simple things. The fancy stuff is a gamble. All right, I can see the church now. Not the sign, too dark, but the shape. The steeple is a cutout against the sky, and there's a single window on the side that looks like it's been boarded from the inside. That's good. That means someone already thought about light discipline. I'm gonna go around back. If you're still with me, keep your volume low. If you hear this frequency go quiet in the next few minutes, it's because I'm unlocking a door with cold fingers, and I need both hands. And if you hear me come back on weaker, thinner, like I'm talking through cloth, that's because the walls down there are thick, and the antenna will be inside until I can get a wire out. One more thing before I drop the mic and move. People are starting to learn routes, so watch for footprints that repeat. Watch for the same set of tire tracks passing your house twice a day. Watch for the way the snow gets scuffed near your gate, like someone stood there and waited. That's your warning. Hold. Hold. I'm at the back fence line now, in the shadow where the church lot meets the alley. The snow here is thinner because the building blocks the wind, and that matters. Thin snow shows everything that passed through. There are tracks, but they're old enough that the edges have softened. A day, maybe, not fresh. Fresh ones look sharp, like someone cut the ground with a knife. My fingers don't want to work. Cold makes the small parts of you stubborn first. Thumb, the pad of your index finger, the parts that turn a key. I've got the key out. I keep it in the same pocket every time because you don't want to be searching and shining any kind of light, not even a phone screen. Phones are bricks now anyway, but people still keep doing the motion like it'll fix itself. I'm going to cut for a few seconds. If you can still hear the carriers, stay put. There, I'm inside the shed. The smell hits first. Old salt, wet wood, mouse droppings. Not a bad smell, just a truth smell. The door closes, and the wind drops away so fast it's like somebody put a hand over your mouth. Quiet in here is thick. You can hear your own jacket creak when you move. I'm on the pack rig, low power. 5 watts, maybe less once the battery sags. If you're close, you'll get me clean. If you're far, you might just get a whisper under the noise. Don't strain your ears so hard you miss your own room. Chilling fact for right now, for night 3. You can walk through a whole neighborhood and only see 3 windows with light, but you can smell 10 houses worth of smoke. People are not heating the way they used to. They're cooking their homes in pieces. A chair leg, a shelf, a door frame. That smell is going to cling to the whole city by the end of the week. I'm not going into the church itself, not tonight. Churches draw people, and people draw troll. This shed is small and ugly and easy to miss. That is a kind of safety. Here's what I can confirm, if you're still unsure what kind of world we're in after that pulse. It was not just a blackout. It cooked things. It took working vehicles and turned them into yard art in the space of a breath. The evidence is all over the streets if you know what to look for. Cars stopped in strange places with keys still turned, some with hazard lights dead mid-blink. Dashboards dark like eyes closed. Older engines, older radios, older simple stuff, some of it still runs. The rest is quiet. Weather update is simple. Cold and getting colder. The wind is up again. It's not a storm yet, but it's the kind of dry cold that pulls water out of you when you're not paying attention. Your lips crack, your nose bleeds. And if you're sleeping in a car, you wake up with your joints hurting like you got in a fight. Infrastructure update, what there is of it. There are pockets of generator power, and those pockets are going to become little islands of noise. You'll hear them at night, a steady engine note, sometimes 2, running out of sync so it beats like a pulse of its own.
Those islands will pull in people who are cold and scared, and it will pull in people who want to take what they can. That's not cynicism, that's hunger. As for government response, what I'm willing to call it, there are accounts coming out of downtown that some city workers tried to clear intersections by hand today. People in reflective vests, no real authority behind them, just trying to make order. The same reports say they got chased off after an argument over a working generator at a gas station. Gas stations are just buildings now, but the generators behind them still matter. We got a short transmission from a utility guy on the east side, voice faint and cracking. He said the substation breakers didn't just trip. He said they're damaged. He said they were trained for storms, for trees on lines, for ice load. This is different. He said they can't just flip it back on even if they wanted to. Parts are burned. And he said the warehouses that hold replacements are locked, and the locks are only as good as the people guarding them. He sounded tired in a way that doesn't come from one bad shift. Another report came in from somebody who said they're a nurse aide at Miami Valley, not a doctor, just someone who lifts and cleans and listens. She said the hospital is on backup power, but the backup is rationed. Whole wings dark, only a few rooms lit. She said they're moving patients into tighter areas to keep them warm and to keep the staff from walking miles in the dark. She said they ran out of oxygen tubing that fits the portable tanks because the new connectors don't match the old tanks, and the new tanks won't fill. That's a small problem that becomes a big one when a person can't breathe. She also said something that stuck. She said the quiet is worse than the noise. No monitors beeping in empty rooms, no elevator chime. Just boots on tile and people whispering so they don't waste energy yelling. I'm going to stay on for as long as the pack battery holds. I've got one spare, and after that I'm down to scavenged cells and prayer. I'm not going to pretend that's a plan. This shed has one small window near the roofline. It's painted over from the inside, but the paint is thin. You can see a gray hint of the night through it. If somebody walks behind the shed with a flashlight, the window will glow. So I'm staying low, and I'm not lighting anything in here. If you're doing the same, remember, a single candle behind a curtain looks warm to you, but from outside, it looks like a target. Another account, this one from a farmer up by Tip City, came in earlier, but I didn't have time to pass it on. He said his old diesel tractor still starts, but the newer one with more electronics is dead. He said he can haul wood and move snow with the old one, which makes him feel rich and doomed at the same time. He said people came by today asking to trade jewelry for fuel. He said he told them no, and then he felt guilty, and then he didn't. He said the second car that came by didn't ask, they just drove slow and looked at his tanks and left. He said he's sleeping in the barn loft now with the rifle his father taught him on, not because he wants to shoot anyone, but because he wants to stay alive long enough to plant in spring if spring still comes like it used to. There's a bigger system failing that people aren't seeing yet because it's quiet. Water pressure. Reports from West Kettering and parts of Moraine say taps are slowing, not out, just slower. That means the towers aren't being refilled the way they should, or pumps aren't pumping. When the water stops, everything else stops fast. If you have a tub, fill it while you can. If you have clean containers, fill them. Don't wait for the official notice. The official notice is always late. I'm going to shift position in the shed because my leg is going numb. If my signal dips, that's why. Okay, we got another message, handwritten, brought to someone with a working handheld, then relayed in pieces. It was from a guy who said he used to do security at the mall. He said a crowd tried to break into the sporting goods store because they heard there were propane canisters and winter coats in the back. He said they got the gate halfway up and then the gate jammed, and people kept pulling until someone's fingers got caught. He said the screaming changed the whole mood. He said after that, nobody wanted to be first anymore. He said the crowd turned on itself in a way that was fast and ugly, and then they scattered when a single shot went off from somewhere in the parking garage. He didn't know who fired. He said it didn't matter. One loud noise resets a whole crowd. If you're out there and you have to move tonight, here's the specific thing to watch for. Not the loud danger, the quiet pattern.
Doors left open a crack on purpose, a line of footprints that stops and then starts again in a different direction, like somebody doubled back. A spot where the snow is scuffed near a corner at waist height, like a hand rested there for a long time. That means someone waited. I'm going to keep the carrier up a little longer, but I'm not going to talk nonstop. Words aren't heat, but they do burn battery. If you can hear this, stay small, stay dim. And if you smell fuel where fuel shouldn't be, don't tell yourself it can wait until morning. I'm smelling fuel now. Not strong, not like a spill you can see, just that thin, sweet edge in the back of your nose that doesn't belong in a cold shed full of salt and old boards. It's the kind of smell that makes you stop breathing for a second without meaning to. If you've never noticed it before, you will now. Gasoline carries in cold air. It doesn't rise like smoke. It lays in places. It pools low. A basement, a stairwell, a ditch. It can sit there waiting for a spark you didn't think you had. I haven't lit anything. No flame, no flashlight, just the radio and my hands. I'm going to keep my voice down for the next part, not because I think the walls can hear, but because my ears can. When everything else goes quiet, you start to hear the tiny stuff again. The way a mouse scratches in insulation. The way wood ticks as it shrinks in cold. The way your own breathing gets loud when you're scared. There's another sound now. Not inside, outside. Slow footsteps on packed snow. Not running, not sloppy. Someone taking their time. Hold yourself still if you're listening. People can't hear you through the radio, but they can hear you through your own panic. Panic makes you do dumb things. Dumb things make noise. The steps stop. They start again. Then they stop again closer to the shed. I'm not moving yet. There's a mistake people make when they're hunting for other people. They think the hunted will run, but cold makes running expensive. You spend heat and breath, and you leave a story on the snow behind you. Sometimes the safest thing is to become part of the building, a board, a shadow, a sealed mouth. If you can hear this carrier clean, you're probably within a few miles. Keep that in mind. Sound travels far in this weather, and so does radio. The steps move away. Slow, not hurried, like whoever it is decided to check something else first. That's not comfort, that's information. I'm going to give you a hard truth about Night 3. The bad actors are learning faster than the rest of us. The people who want to help are still trying to be the old version of themselves. They're still asking permission. They're still looking for leaders. The people who want to take have already accepted the new rules. I'm not saying everyone is dangerous. I'm saying you can't tell by the face in the dark. I'm going to relocate. Not far, but I'm not staying in a box that might have gas fumes and might be on somebody's casual path. This shed was a good idea until it wasn't. That's how most plans die now. Not with drama, just with a small change. I'm going to pack the rig, keep the antenna low, and move along the fence line toward the school maintenance building 2 blocks east. It's brick, no windows on the back, and there's a service stairwell that goes down. It's colder underground, but it's harder to spot. If the signal cuts for a minute, don't chase it. Don't go outside because you think you can help me. Just listen for the carrier to come back. I'm going dark. All right, I'm back on, and I'm moving as I talk. The pack is tighter than I want, straps biting through my coat. Every piece of metal on me feels like it wants to stick to my skin. The alley is a channel of gray between fences. Snow crunches when you step wrong, so I'm placing my boots on old tire tracks where the snow is already compressed. Less noise. Chilling fact while I walk, you can tell who's desperate and who's patient by what they take. Desperate people grab food. Patient people grab boots. Patient people grab can openers. Patient people grab propane and flashlights and batteries. Patient people become a problem in a week, not a day. The church lot is behind me now.
I can see the back of the sanctuary as a black shape against a lighter sky. No light in the stained glass. It looks like a closed eye. There's a car in the street ahead, half in a driveway, half out. It died in the act of leaving. Door open, snow on the seat. Someone took the battery. I can tell because the hood isn't latched, and the snow pattern is disturbed there. People are already stripping what they understand. To my right, a house has a curtain fluttering. Not from wind, from someone moving inside. They see me, and they still move. Either they're not afraid, or they're too tired to play statue. Either way, I don't look at the window long. If you stare at people, they think you want something. A report came in earlier, short and clipped, from a guy who said he works deliveries for a pharmacy chain. He said the stores that stayed open for one day after the pulse are empty now, not from sales, from grabbing. He said people didn't just take medicine, they took soap, they took bandages, they took the little bottles of eye drops. And he said the saddest thing was the empty shelves where baby formula used to be. Not because it was valuable, but because it's time sensitive. Babies don't wait for supply chains to come back. Another one from a woman who said she's a city bus driver. She said her bus is dead in the yard, but the yard is full of fuel they can't pump because the pumps are electronic. She said they tried to siphon with hoses, and they got a little out, but not enough to matter. She said the whole yard smells like fuel and rubber, and people have started showing up at the fence at night like it's a grocery store. She said she heard them arguing over who gets to climb first. That smell I caught in the shed might not have been the shed. It might just be the city now. I'm at the school grounds. The playset is half buried in snow. The metal slide looks like a tongue stuck out in the cold. There are footprints here that don't make sense for a closed school. Too many, in loops, back and forth, people pacing, waiting. That's a sign. Somebody thought this was a place to gather. The maintenance building is behind the gym. There's a service store, steel, with a push bar. It's locked, but the frame is old, and old things fail in predictable ways. I'm not going to ram it. Ramming makes noise, and noise makes company. I'm going around to the loading area. If you're still with me, here's your infrastructure update while my hands work. The cell towers are not coming back soon. Even if a tower has a generator, the backhaul is dead. Fiber nodes need power. Switching stations need power. The pulse didn't just shut off your phone, it broke the spine behind it. That means rumor is the new internet. That means the loudest liar can become the truth in a day. Government response, what little I can confirm, there are National Guard trucks seen on I-75 earlier today, moving south, not stopping. Someone on a ridgeline with binoculars counted 8 vehicles, 2 Humvees and a wrecker. No flashing lights, just moving. If they're repositioning, they're doing it quiet. That usually means they don't want company. We got a scrap of paper relayed through 2 handhelds from a man who said he's a firefighter in Oakwood. He said they've stopped responding to single-structure fires unless there are people trapped. Not because they don't care, because they can't. They're saving fuel for calls that keep bodies alive. He said they watched a house burn from the street because the hydrant had no pressure and the truck pump was sucking air. He said the family stood in the snow in their socks and nobody could find gloves that fit the kids. I've got the loading door open. It wasn't locked. That's worse than a lock. I'm inside the maintenance corridor now. Concrete floor, stale air, the kind of place that smells like mop water even when nobody's mopped in months. It's darker than the shed was. No streetlight bleed at all. I'm going to set up in the stairwell. The antenna will be a compromise. I'll run it low along the wall. Try to get some height through the vent pipe if I can find it. My wattage is lower now. The battery took a hit in the cold. If you lose me, it may not be your radio. It may be my hands and chemistry failing. Listen close for a moment.
If you hear a steady tone under my voice, that's my rig complaining. That's heat loss. That's a connector not seated right. Everything is physical again. And one more report, because it matters. Someone who said they work at the water treatment plant in Dayton, not management, just operations, said they can run some parts by hand, but the controls that regulate chemical feed are dead. They're guessing. They're using test strips like it's 1972. He said they can keep water moving for a bit, but he wouldn't trust it in a week. He said if the pressure drops, contaminants move the wrong way in the pipes. He said boiling helps, but only if you have fuel to boil with. I'm going to keep the carrier up as long as I can from this stairwell. If you're out there and you're still on city water, don't just fill containers. Fill them and cover them. Dust, ash, mouse droppings, anything can get in now. The world is filthy in ways you used to pay other people not to think about. And if you hear a door open somewhere in your building when nobody should be awake, don't call out. Don't ask who's there. Just listen first. I'm listening now. Concrete makes a different kind of quiet than wood. It doesn't creak. It just sits there and holds cold like a sponge holds water. The stairwell smells like dust and old paint. And underneath that, a faint chemical bite, like somebody stored cleaners down here and forgot about them. Here's a chilling fact for night 3, and I want you to take it seriously. You can't always smell danger before it finds you, but when you do smell it, you're already late. Gas fumes, chlorine, smoke in a wall, a sick sweet smell from a freezer that lost power days ago. Your nose isn't an early warning system, it's a confirmation. I'm in the service stairwell behind a gym at Belmont High in Dayton. Backside, brick and concrete, no windows. I've got the pack on the landing and I'm keeping my body between the door and the rig. Not because that would stop anyone, it's just habit. You put your soft parts behind something hard when you can. I'm going to give you a quick equipment note, because if you're hearing my voice thin out, it's not your imagination. The cold is pulling my battery down faster than it should. I'm running lower power, and I'm trying to keep the connector warm with my palm between sentences. If you hear a steady tone under me, that's the rig telling me the voltage is sagging.
All right, back. The quiet part first. There are no lights in this building. Not emergency exit signs, not hallway glow, nothing. I know some of you are still seeing those red exit letters in your towns and thinking it means there's power somewhere. It doesn't always. Some signs have their own little battery. They die after a day. Then they're just plastic. The loud part. The city feels like it's holding its breath. No traffic hiss, no distant highway. Just wind and the occasional bang of something settling or breaking as it cools. That's what a grid-down city sounds like after the first panic, like an empty pool. We're receiving reports that the water pressure is dropping in pockets across Montgomery County. Not everywhere at once. It's patchy, which is worse because it tricks you into thinking your neighborhood is fine. A man who said he's a plumber, been doing it 20 years, told us he watched a whole block lose pressure in an hour. Then it came back weak and brown. He said the first thing that happens is people blame the plant. The second thing that happens is people start breaking into closed houses to use their bathtubs like wells. If you've got water right now, store it like you won't have more. Not because I'm trying to scare you, because the system that kept water clean and moving depended on power, and power depended on people, and people are getting tired. Another report came in on a shaky handheld from a woman who said she's an aide at Miami Valley Hospital. She didn't sound dramatic. She sounded busy. She said they're still running on generator, but they're cutting corners that would have been unthinkable a week ago. She said they're grouping patients in warmer rooms to save heat, and they've moved some critical equipment closer together to reduce extension runs. She said the worst thing is that the doors don't lock right anymore because the electronic locks failed, so they've got staff standing in hallways just to keep desperate family members from pushing into places they can't go. She said one man tried to carry an oxygen tank out under his coat, not to sell it, to take it home. That's where we are. Home is becoming a treatment plan. Weather update. It's still below freezing. The wind is light, but it cuts because there's no sun heat stored in buildings anymore. Houses are cold-soaked now. After 3 nights, the drywall and the furniture and the floor joists are all the same temperature. That's when you start to lose people who thought they were fine. Hypothermia doesn't always look like shivering. Sometimes it looks like being calm and making bad choices. I'm going to tell you what I saw moving here because it matters. On the way from the church lot to this school, I passed 2 burn barrels going in a backyard. Not unusual.
What was unusual was what they were burning. One was plywood, sure. The other was a pile of children's books. Not as a symbol, as fuel. You could tell by the smell of ink and glue. That's what cold does. It turns everything into a resource. It makes you look at your own life like inventory. We got a short transmission from a guy out by Huber Heights. Said he drives a tow truck. He said the impound lot is full, but nobody is coming to claim anything because nobody can prove ownership without the computers. He said he's been using his truck battery to charge handheld radios for neighbors, but the truck won't start now unless he keeps it warm, and he can't keep it warm because he can't idle it. He said he started pulling car batteries out of the impound cars and lining them up in his garage like bricks. He said he knows it's wrong, but he also knows his kids are cold. That's the moral math now. People will do things they never did before, and they'll sleep anyway because they have to. I'm hearing something else in this building. Not footsteps, not voices. A steady drip somewhere below me. Like a pipe that didn't fully drain and is now cracking as it freezes. If you're in a house with plumbing, listen for that. A drip you ignore becomes a burst you can't fix. And once pipes burst, the damage doesn't wait for spring. It soaks insulation, it grows mold when it warms, it turns your walls into a rotten sandwich. Another report, a man who said he's with a volunteer fire department outside Xenia told us they're seeing more chimney fires than structure fires. People are using fireplaces they've never used. They're burning green wood, painted wood, furniture, whatever fits. He said the smoke is heavier and it hugs the ground because the air is cold and still. He said he watched a family cough so hard they couldn't stand, and when he told them to open a window, they said they were afraid someone would climb in. So here's your reminder, plain. Carbon monoxide is invisible, and it does not care about your plans. If you burn anything indoors, you need a vent. If you have a detector and it still has a battery, treat it like gold. If you don't, you need to watch each other for headache, confusion, nausea, weird sleepiness. That's not the flu. That's your body being turned off. I'm going to shift position down 1 flight. The landing I'm on has a door with glass, and even though it's dark, glass is a promise. Somebody will shine a light someday, and glass will answer it. Moving now. If my signal wobbles, stay with the carrier. I'm still here. All right. Lower landing. Colder. The air down here tastes like damp cement. There's a mop bucket tipped over in the corner, frozen into a shallow puddle like a little gray pond. That tells you how long it's been since anyone cared. We're